Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Maseches ARACHIN Daf Chaf Aleph. We begin on Chaf Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom of the Yomid. Be'ika, there were those, the Masni law, that would apply this concept, on a totally different context. So this relates to yesterday, where we mentioned Shitas Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds that a person can actually make a kinyan. He can commit himself regarding something which is in the future, something which isn't even here yet. So for instance, it could be Magdish. He can donate to Hegdish something which has yet to arrive. So we had one version yesterday. Here comes another version of the same concept, applied in a different setting. So some applied it to the following halacha. We have a brisa. Hamasker bais lachaver b'nisnaga. Okay, so Reuven rented this home to Shimon, and suddenly a nega appears in the house, which pretty much makes it difficult to live in. I mean, the house is tamei, right? Even if the kohen actually condemned it, designated it as tamei, and Rashi points out it's about to be demolished, as per the halacha of a nega. So as long as it's still standing, Reuven, the landlord, can tell the tenant, hang on, here's your house. I'm not going to replace it at this point. So even though you become tamei by living in there, Taisus points out that it would sound like you can actually use a house, that it's mutar bahano in this state. And it brings a raya that it's not so. So in conclusion, Taisus says, of course, he can't actually live there. But what the Gemara means is to say that he doesn't have to replace it. He can say, look, fact is, here's the house. Okay, you're having a hard time? Okay, I'll forego the rent. And he says, we're speaking that he rented him this house, bais zeh. And since the actual physical element of the house is still here, so he doesn't have to replace it. But of course he has to forego his rent. That's how Taisus learns the Gemara. Okay, but this is only as long as the house is still physically standing. But suppose Nisatzai, they already, demolished it. So the Kohen demolished it, or on order of the Kohen, right? Now, of course, the landlord has to replace the home and give him a substitute. And why? So Rashi says an interesting thing. Rashi on the bottom line, he says the Mishum Mazle de Maska, we attribute it to the luck or to the account of the landlord. It's his issue. It's his responsibility. Shenechshad ala gozel. Well, we learned the other day that nega can be caused by dishonesty, by robbing, by stinginess. So we blame it on the landlord. The fact is, it's his house, and that's why he's encountering this difficulty, because of his shortcomings. So it's all blamed on the owner. Interesting. So that's why he has to replace the home that was demolished. Chayiv lahamli bayis, has to give him a different place to live. The brisa continues on the next amud. Higdishay hador. At this point, we figure that the brisa means that the dor, the tenant Shimon, actually donated the house. The question will be, how could he do that? It's not really his. It's only his to live in. In any case, he made it Hegdish. So now he has to forward the rent to Hegdish. Malas charla Hegdish. So his rent is sent to the Hegdish. I asked the Gemara, how? How could he even be Magdish? It's not his. Higdishay hadar. How could you say that the Darba, the one living, the tenant, can actually make it Hegdish? It's not his. Hechi motzi Magdish. How does he have the ability to be Magdish? Ish ki Hegdish beisei kodesh amachon. The pasuk in describing the donation process refers to it like this: Ish ki Hegdish is beisei kodesh. A person, donated his house. Amar Achmana. That's how Torah describes the process, and we learn it has to be like your house. In your possession, yours, not just you renting it. My base, just like your home, Bershusha is your possession. It's actually owned by you. And only that can you be Magdish, Av, Koyel, likewise any item. In order to be Magdish, it has to be Bershusha, it has to be in your possession, it has to be yours. So how could he donate the landlord's house? Okay, come the Brisa. No, the Brisa means differently. Higdisha masker. We're speaking that the owner, the landlord, rented it, donated it to the hegdish. So in this case, he foregoes the rent. The rent is now being sent straight to hegdish because they own the property. Hadar boy, so the one living there, Shimon Malas Charla Hegdish, he forwards his rental check to the Hegdish. Ask the Gemara, Hegdisha masker. So if the owner was Magdish, that's a valid Hegdish. How can Shimon even continue living there? It belongs to Hegdish. Mi'ilakai is diverting Hegdish, possessions for personal use. So you can't just walk in and even for pay, it belongs to Hegdish. Mesu. Next point, you're telling me that the rent is sent to the Hegdish. What's the point? Malas Char la Hegdish. He pays the Hegdish the rent. Given the Moal Bay, once the one living, the resident, committed Me'ilah, you know what happens by Me'ilah? Rashi explains the word Me'ilah means Shinoi. It gets converted, it gets changed. It's a change of status. That's the definition of Me'ilah. You're diverting it. So it's been diverted, it's been changed. It's no longer Hegdish. So once you do Me'ilah, that's it. It loses Hegdish status. Given the Moal Bay, once you do Me'ilah on this property, Nafak Leis Char Lachuz. Now the property is no longer Hegdish, and the rent as well does not belong to Hegdish. So what's going on in this price? Somebody was Magdish it, and the rent goes to Hegdish. How could it be? The renter can't be Magdish, not his. The landlord, okay, then it's Hegdish, you can't live there. Says the Gemara, he was Magdish the future income of this property, not the property itself, but the rent that will arrive later. And you could do that, as we learned yesterday. You could be Magdish something down the road. The Amar was speaking that the landlord, Reuben, got up and pledged as follows: when the rent will show up, Yigdash will become Kaddish. So the property is not Kaddish, which allows Shimon to continue living there, but the rent, when it gets produced, goes straight to Hegdish. Asks the Gemara, the rent wasn't yet here at this early point. How could you be Magdish something down the road? The person can be Magdish doesn't yet exist. No, you can. The Amur says you can do that. A person can personally obligate himself, right? Machayev himself to something which is going to arrive in the future. The Amar Adam Magdish, a person can donate even a davar shalai b'loy. Because there was another version of this. The names here, who said what? Amar Prabal Abaye. And some say Ramari Bar Chamar Chizda. So he's pledging the future income. Command Rameir, is this in line with Rameir? Perhaps. So it's sort of a question. The Amar Adam Magdish Davar Shalai B'Lem. Is this in line with Rameir, who says that typically a person can donate something down the road? So we're sort of wondering. Yes, Amar Lei says, of course. Who else? Well, come on. Continues the Mishnah. So a person pledges, he donates, and he is not paying. So there's a system called Mimashkin in Oysan. The treasurer comes down, the sheriff comes down and grabs a collateral to ensure, full payment to the Hegdish. And the question is, in what type of situation do we apply this collateral system, this forced payment system? So in the Mishnah we're going to learn, it's only when there's a concern the person in fact will not pay up his pledge because he's not motivated to do so for personal reasons. But if there's a kapara that he's going to benefit from directly, in that case, like a chatas, like an osh, there's no need to go after him. He's personally motivated to do so. There's no need to enforce it. It says the Mishnah, chayav erachin, a person is obligated to pay up an erech and he's not paying, we go after him and we enforce it. But chayav chatas v'ashamis, which generate atonement, there's no reason to force him. He's more than happy to do it. Ein mashkin noisam. What about chayav oilos shlamim? And oilos shlamim is a donation without a real direct kapara. And Rashi points out, even though they do atone for a mitzvah asay that was violated, but it's not a chayva, it's not a personal obligation, it's sort of a bonus. You bring it, you get a kapara. So a person will just tattle and tarry and not bring it, and therefore you have to go after him. But the Mishnah continues. We should know, even if we're going to twist his arm, the actual kapara will only be effective if he's misratz, if he does it willingly. The Pasuk says it has to be willingly. So you have this dilemma. On the one hand, you're enforcing it, and you're forcing him, you're compelling him, but then you want him to do it with a smile? How do you accomplish it? Says the Gemara, here's the trick. We force him until he says, yes, I'm happy to do it. Right, Sani? And the Rambam, in Hilchas Gittin, which pertains to the next line in the Mishnah, let's just finish the Mishnah. Same applies to a forced get in cases where a husband is compelled because the halacha compels him to give a get and we force him, but ultimately it has to be done willingly. How do you accomplish both at once? You force him to do it willingly? Yeah, it's quite nice. We force him, we compel him until he concedes and says, yes, sure, I'm happy to do it. And the Rambam asks, how does it work? I mean, the fact is he's being forced to say, I'm willing. So the Rambam says, beautiful thing, he says, really? A person, here's the Lashon of Rambam, listen to the Lashon. Misha takfa yitzrei hara. A person was compelled by his Yetzer Hara. It's not really him. It's some sort of evil, external evil force that's forcing him to do something which he doesn't really want to do. He wants to do good. He wants to do a mitzvah, but the Yetzer Hara is getting in his way. What do? We get the Yetzer Hara out of the way. And once it's out of the way, his neshama shines forth. Right, Sonny, of course, I want to do Hashem's Ratzon. Sure, my whole heart. Misha takfa yitzrei hara levatal mitzvah elasas avera. Yetzer Hara stood in his way, get in the way of a mitzvah, or trying to get him to do an avera b'huka, and he was struck. Okay, so he was forced to do something which he's obligated to do, or alternatively, to keep away from something improper. That's not called oines. It's not like something beyond him. It's his doing. It relates to him. Elu atzmoi b'de'asa hara. Hu anas atzm b'de'asa hara. The real person wanted to do the right thing or keep away from doing improper. He was going through a forced situation when Yetzer Hara was trying to pull him in the opposite, in the wrong direction. That was against his will. And now we're just allowing him to run his natural course. We're not forced. We're just getting the impediments out of the way. Leficha, says the Rambam, a person doesn't want a divorce when he's meant to. The fact is, every Yid wants to be a Yid. Every Yid wants to do every mitzvah. If only he could. To keep away from Averis. But there's a big but. The Yetzer Hara, the vicious Yetzer Hara, gets in his way. He should takva. Is sitting on him, weighing him down. But once he was hit, that weakened the Yetzer Hara, got the Yetzer out of the way. And now he gets up and says, okay, I'm doing it. That's a true divorce, willing divorce. Or in the case of the carbon as well. Always remember as a kid, about 10, 11 years old, I used to go to this Shabbos shir in the Mir Yeshiva in Brooklyn, New York, given by the Chashav, but he has a Ginsburg Shlita. Shabbos afternoon, he used to speak about the parsha. I came into, it intrigued me as a kid. So I remember him saying the idea about forcing the fellow to leave the carbon, the get. And after the class, I went over, I said, but isn't that counterintuitive? I mean, you're going against the idea of Ratzon, you're forcing him to. He said, it's a great question. He validated it, and he quoted the Rambam. He showed me the Rambam inside. That was my first exposure to this wonderful Rambam. No, it's true Ratzon, it's true will, it's to do the right thing. Yetzer Hara is forcing him away. Get the Yetzer Hara out of the way. He's back on track, shining forth. Beautiful. Omra Papa, even though the Mishnah states that Mashkin is specific to Oila v'Shlamim, where he doesn't have that same degree of motivation, versus Chatas v'Asham, where he's personally motivated, there's no need to enforce it, but there are some exceptions. Sometimes it reverses itself. You can have a Chatas, which is just sort of part of the formality, not really bringing a kapara, in which case you have to go after him to enforce it. And sometimes you have an Oila, which is critical to his, success, his process there, and brings kapara, and in which case you don't have to go after him because he'll bring it on his own. Omra Papa, at times the tables turn. Shechayev chatois mashkin oisen. You have to be a mashkin, a fellow who's meant to bring a chatos, because we're speaking about a chatos which is not critical. So unless you go after him, you don't know if he's. On the other hand, chayev oilois einu mashkin oisen. You have a person who's chayev oilo, you don't have to go after him. For example, chayev chatois mim mashkin oisen, a chatos where you have to enforce bechatos nazir, a nazir. At the end of the process, he has to bring the achatas and other karbanos. The kivan amar, as we learned, im gila halachat mishlash tan yotza. Even just one of the 3 karbanos, the chatas or the oil of the shlamim, can give him the green light to get the to cut his hair. So likewise, if one of the karbanos was processed on mizbeach, the zrika, you can go drink and go to levaya. So since any one of these three karbanos will open his door back into the community, Pasha Bavli might say there's real concern that he might not be motivated to finish the series and bring the other karbanos. So in this case, we have to go after him to ensure that he brings all his karbanos properly. Right? So even though it's a chatos, but in this case, the chatos is not critical to his process, so you have to enforce it. On the other hand, chayev oilos, you have a case of a person who's chayev oilo, where we don't have to go after him. There's no need. He'll do it on his own. Ein mashkenoisan. When boilos yeledis. A woman who gave birth, who has to bring her oilo, and Rashi says, for without, she can't have karbanos, so she's motivated. Mind you, how do you know that the oila gets in her way? The act of mikra, because it's mentioned in the pasuk before the chatas. You assume it denotes its criticality. Rava teaches us that no, it's not that the oila goes before the chatas and it's critical. The mikra higdima kosev. It's just that in the pasuk it's mentioned first for whatever reason. Taisus learns elsewhere that it means that you have to designate the oila before the chatas when you set aside the karb. But in any case, it doesn't mean that it's critical. So it's like a regular oila. And unless you enforce it, you don't know what's going to happen. Ela boilas metzora. We're speaking about oila that a metzora brings, which is vital to his purification process, in which case you don't have to enforce it. He's self-motivated. The sign of Shmuel B'ridin Breka Omer, or B'yechem Breka Omer, Kishem shechatas v'asham yikvasoi, u'me'akvasoi, just like the chatas and the asham of the metzora holds him back from his kapara, from his tahara, kach oilos yikvasoi, likewise the oila. So all three are needed, all three are critical, and he's self-motivated to bring it. So in some cases you have to force it, but you should know the actual kapara requires willingness and true consent. And Rabban Yaakov Oisai, you work on him. Malamed, we learn from Mishnah Koif and Oisai. Sometimes you have to actually force him and compel him. Perhaps you can actually bring the carbon against his will. No, willingly. How could you merge both things? It's against his will and it's with his will. Okay, so how do you work this out? We force him until ultimately he says, you know what? Actually, here's my neshama speaking. Right, Sani. So to process an oila, you have to have his ratzon, as per the pasuk l'rtzoyne. What's Shmuel's point? Tanina, we already have this in the Mishnah. Mishnah just told us that the kapara has to be done willingly because of l'rtzoyne. It's richa. Must be Shmuel speaking about a sponsor. The Parish Lechavrei. Reuben is sponsoring Shimon's carbon. He's mafresh a carbon for Shimon. So he knew that Shimon is obligated to bring an oila. Comes Reuben and says, you know what? I'll sponsor it. Comes Shmuel and says, you have to inform him to get his consent. Well, perhaps there's room to think there's no need for consent. Be mazakas and rabbin, right? Zach and Adam shalei b'fanav. No. Kibin and das. When do we need consent and awareness? Be the day when it's his own carbon. So when Bezdin forced it and pushed him to do it, you have to get his consent. But perhaps if his friend is sponsoring, thank you very much. Who says you need your consent? Kamash on the point of Shmuel is to say zim dalinichale. Who says Shimon is interested? Maybe he doesn't want somebody else to take care of my karbanos, the lechaper, to get a kapar b'mid the day with somebody that's not his. He wants to use his own money to get his own schus. So according to Shmuel, you have to get his consent and his okay when you are being mafresh a carbon on his behalf, even an oila. Maybe comes a kasha from a brisa, which seems to say there's no need for consent. Chatas v'asham shall plenty a lie. I'm sponsoring that person's chatas v'asham. Return to my place. Okay, ladas, if he told, his beneficiary, right? If Reuven told Shimon, okay, yatsa, it works. But otherwise not, ladas la yatsa. That's by a chatas v'asham, where there's vidu, there's kapar, but a lasay shlamav. If it's an oilo shlamim, which are not really machaprim, there's no need to make vidu. Shall plenty lie, I am committing to attend to that person's oilo shlamim, then you don't need the awareness, you don't need das. Bein ladas, whether he knows, whether he's okay with it, bein ladas, or otherwise, he's also yatsa. In contrast to Shmuel, it says that even by an oila you need das. Shmuel responds, it depends on which stage in the process we're talking. There are two junctures to speak of. There's the moment of designation of hafrasha. That's what I'm talking about. You can't get started. You can't take off without telling the person before you mafresh the oila. Okay, so it only gets designated as that person's oila if he's okay with it, if he's masking, if he's consenting. The Brisa, which says that by oila v'shlamim there's no need to inform him, that's to inform him a second time. At the moment of the hakrava, v'shas kap, you don't have to tell him at that point. Tosfos explains there's no vidui going on. So even though he's giving up the smicha opportunity to lean on his curb, it's not critical. You don't have to tell him. Amalach Shmuel Ketanya he, when the Brisa says no awareness, no notification is needed by the oila, Ketanya he b'shas kapara, when he's actually doing the kapara, meaning the hakrava of the carbon. The Irtzi in b'shas hafrasha, because he was already told, he was already informed, and he consented at the moment of designation initially. No, and in fact, when I say that an oila needs das, that's b'shas hafrasha, and one was designated. And once we get that consent, he's good to go. Okay, so according to Shmuel, whether it's a chatos or an oila, b'shas hafrasha, check. You need das. B'shas kapara, well, an oila does not need das, but a chatas v'asham does. Tosfos explains because he wants, we assume the fellow wants to be involved and do the vidui with the smicha. Upligadula is exactly the opposite of Ula's approach. It takes the reverse approach. He says that, you have to tell everybody, whether it's an oila or chat, tell him b'shasti kapara, because he wants to be involved in the smicha, do that mitzvah. Hafrasha, the chatos, you have to tell him. It's, you be mafresh a carbon for his chet, and it has to become designated for that. But by an oila, you don't have to tell him initially, as long as he knows, ultimately, when you do the hakrava. So Ula takes exactly the reverse approach than Shmuel. Shmuel says, by hafrasha, all need to know. By kapara, oila does not. And Ula says, by kapara, all do need to know. By hafrasha, oila does not. The pliga de Ula in disagreement with Ula. The Amar Ula, there's no difference between chatas for oila regarding getting consent at the moment of hakrava. Only difference is at the moment of hafrasha. Ella, rather, shechatos trichadas b'shas hafrasha. So by the chatos, you have to inform him that you'll be mafresh it for him and designating for him in his kapara. V'oila ain't trichadas b'shas hafrasha, but the oila, you don't have to tell him during the hafrasha. Tosfos explains because by the chatos, you have to tell him. Maybe he doesn't want to get a kapara from the other person's. He wants to use his own kapara to get his own atonement in house. But the oila v'shlamim is not meant for kapara. So as long as you tell him later, at the last moment, you don't have to tell him initially when you're preparing it for him. But certainly when it comes to the actual kapara, the moment of offering on the mizbech, the owner has to know. Either whether it's a chatas v'oila, the das. If he's told yatsa, it works. Lo das, otherwise lo yatsa. Maybe it comes a kash. The Brisa says chatas v'ashamish alosa v'shlama shapleni alai. Okay, I'm sponsoring that person's chatas. It's asham is oila v'shlam. Alai. Okay, it's upon me. You have to inform him. Does he have to know? Lo das. If he's told yatsa, then it's a valid carbon. Sure, lo das, but without knowledge, lo yatsa doesn't work. So, what is the Brisa referring to? Which juncture, which stage in the process? The hafrasha, the designation, or the kapara? So it depends who's speaking. Shmuel will learn that the Brisa, which issues a blanket rule that all karbanos need consent, that's b'shas hafrasha, as per Shmuel's opinion. To get started, you have to have his consent. Shmuel mukla b'shas hafrasha. Whereas Ula mukla b'shas kapara. He says, no, the Brisa is talking about during kapara, where it's a blanket halacha on all karbanos. Amar Papa, let's address one more point. We seem to have a contradiction. In this Brisa, we learned that das is needed all around. According to Shmuel, it's going on the hafrasha, according to Ula on the kapara. But the earlier Brisa, which we had on the bottom of Amud Aleph into Amud Beis, drew a line, made a distinction between the das requirement by chatas, which is not required by the oila. It seems to be a contradiction within the Brises. And that can be solved easily as well. Depends which junction we're talking about, right? Likewise, we can resolve the apparent contradiction between two brises. Right? One is talking about by kapara, one by the afrasha. And each amoira, meaning Shmuel, will learn it one way, and Ula will learn it differently. Okay, and the Amoraim as well, right? They will interpret, the brises and resolve the brises in accordance with their approach. As follows. Shmuel will learn as follows. Mukid Kamais, he'll establish that the first brisa that says that the oil does not need das, b'shas kapara, that's speaking during the kapara. As opposed to basraisa, second brisa, the das is needed all throughout, that's b'shas hafrasha, when you're designating. Ula goes the other way. Muki Ifchol will learn it exactly the opposite. That when do we need das all around? That's b'shas the kapara. When does oila not need das? That's b'shas the hafrasha. But Amorai v'adei pligi. But of course the Amoraim, Shmuel and Ula certainly disagree with each other, as we explained. Pshito, obviously, of course. While the Tema, perhaps you can say that there really was no machlokes. My b'shas hafrasha to come as Shmuel, af b'shas hafrasha. Perhaps Shmuel agreed with Ula that by kapara you have to tell him whether it's an oil or a chatas. He wasn't disagreeing on that. And Shmuel needed two. He needed das by the kapara and by the afrasha in all cases. Maybe that's what Shmuel meant. So Ula required das all throughout by the kapara and not by the afrasha. By the afrasha, the oil does not need. But Shmuel required das all around by all cases, by all steps of the process. Perhaps there's room to misunderstand and to learn that when Shmuel says b'shas hafrasha, the Kamar Shmuel says you das b'shas hafrasha, b'shas hafrasha, also b'shas hafrasha. V'avagav da'ach kamaisa tiyufte. Although according to this, it's going to be a little problem here, because if according to Shmuel, in fact, das is needed all around, all throughout, well, that first brisa clearly said otherwise. First brisa says that by oila we don't need das. So perhaps that's the correct approach to things. Kamash, when comes Rapap and tells us no. So when he said the words Amarei Namalei Kasha, Rapap was clarifying for us that in fact each Amoira, Shmuel, and Ula has their own way to resolve the apparent contradiction between the brises, as we explained. Because according to Shmuel, das all around is only needed by the afrasha, as per the second brisa. But by the kapara, Ula does not need, as per the first brisa, and Ula took the opposite approach. When is das needed all around? By the kapara, as per the second brisa. When is das not needed by the Ula? By the afrasha, as per the first brisa. And there really is a direct machlokes between Ula and Shmuel. Okay, the Mishnah continued. The same exact formula of a forced willingness is done by Gittin as well. Let's say the husband is a wise guy. He knows he's going to be forced to give a get. So he makes a moidah, an advance notification. He gets a couple of friends and has himself declare in front of Adam, next month I'm going to be taken to task, forced by the bezin to give a get. I want to tell you that get is now nullified in advance. Moidah. Actually, it has validity. He preempted the forced get. Pshit, obviously, it's a moidah. Of course, it has validity. Leitzrich must be speaking like this. Das uha virzi. So next Monday they pulled him into the bezin, and he seemed to give the get willingly. So maybe that's considered a cancellation on the moidah. Perhaps there's room to think bituli batle, that by willingly giving the get, he's now undoing that moidah, and now the get is valid. Kamash, the point is no, unless you explicitly cancel that moidah, that Maidah overrides the get. How do I know this? Because otherwise, listen to the Mishnah describing the enforcement process. Say, well, we force him until he gives. And that's enough to undo any prior, notifications. The Mishnah doesn't suffice with eating. The Mishnah continues and says, you have to force him until he gets up and says, I am doing this willingly. That's an explicit verbalization. That it's being done willingly and is an override on any prior Maidah. Why does he have to go and say? You know why? Adam avatul Maidah. So that the Reitzani is considered a bittul on the Maidah. Now it seems in the Gemara that just by saying Reitzani, he's already been mevatel the Maidah. But Tosfos adds, he says, Lefichach nagu ilam. The accepted practice is levatel kol Maidah. That in fact, when they force the husband to give a get, if halacha mandates that he gives a get and he's doing it in a forced manner, so he has to actually say, we tell him to be mevatel all the Maidahs. Spell it out. Not only that, u'maidai de asa migai maidai, a maidai which comes from a maidah, which means to say, a fellow can get up and say, next week I'm expecting them to force me to give a get. So I'm being meiser maidah, and I'm also being meiser maidah that if I'm mevatel, if the person forced me to mevatel my maidah, I'm informing you that nullification is null and void as well. So it's just an endless proposition. So that's why when we have him give the get, we force him to say, we say like this, you're doing it willingly, you'll be mevatel any prior maidah and any maidah on this maidah as well. So basically we cover all bases, and now it's a valid get. So we do all this b'shas ksivas get, b'shas anasina. So it says the ARACHIN and Shem bitlois were concerned that maybe he was playing games and he was mevatel in advance. Says the Mishnah. So Rashi explains that we're speaking about when the Bezdin has to access the estate of the Yisayim. We speak about Yisayim in this parak, it's underage, Ketanim, not yet bar mitzvah, able to fend for themselves and to litigate in court. So we look after them with sensitivity and care. And we don't have to. They don't have to pay up debts of their father until until they're of age to deal with it properly and to figure things out. So typically we don't use their estate, the property that they inherited from their father, towards payments, but in some cases we do. We'll see in the Gemara what the exceptions are, and if we do it with care. There's a whole formal, advertising auction process to ensure that we get proper value. So the shum means the appraisal system, the advertising system of the estate of the Hayisayim. Shleishim yom is a 30-day process. Okay, so we put it on the market for 30 days. Vishum hegdash shishim yom. If it's a matter of selling hegdash property, that's a 60-day process. Umachrizmi advertise every morning and evening. Asks the Gemara, what's unique about morning and evening for advertising properties? When the workers go out to the farms and when they come back. Why? So he says like this. Because if you have a fellow investor looking to buy a property, looking to buy a farm, he knows that his workers, they're on the scene, they know what's going on in the farm world. So he's going to ask his worker on the way out, he turns to the Payalim, going out there anyways to work, on your break, check him out for me, go see what's going on. Sairila means to survey, go see the state of affairs, and come back and report to me. And that's why we advertise again, we call it out again, towards evening when they come back from work. This way it jogs his memory. So this way he now recalls that he had asked them to check out the field. And now he'll go and ask them for the details. Tanam, you find the same in a brayso. Right? When we announce the morning and evening, on the way in of the workers. Okay, so what's the actual announcement that the announcer does? He says like this: Sada Ploini, such and such field, bis Simonea, with these specific landmarks, with these indicators, ubi mitzareh, and these boundaries. So he specifies the field with its all its specifications. Is up for sale, kacha yafa. this is how much crop it produces, very productive field. This is what we evaluate it as, $3.2 million. Whoever wants to buy it, you're welcome to do so. Almanas, and the purpose is to pay off a debt. You should know the money is going to pay off the widow or ksuva payment, and or to pay off a debt of a debtor. Now, what's the point of specifying the purpose of the sale and the recipient of the sale money? What's the point of adding almanas litan leishuk ksavasa? How does that add, to the sale? Says the more actually, it adds an advantage because sometimes it makes it more attractive to a buyer. He knows that sometimes a person is pleased that it's a balchayv on the other side. To make a wazuzi, who'll be easygoing in terms of accepting all kinds of currencies. As long as he walks out with his money, he's happy, right? Rashi says, Zuzel shvurim b'chaserim, chipped coins, he's okay as long as, he's a merchant, he's not so particular about the coins. So when the potential buyer hears that the money is going to balchayv, he knows he has these, bashed up coins, so he'll jump into the deal. And likewise, and sometimes a person is pleased that the payout is going to the isha, who doesn't need the $3.2 million in one shot. She's happy to take it, piece by piece, the payment plan. The shakal yad al yad, she'll take it, a bit at a time, and make it easier for him to finance the purchase. So in fact, adding these details will make for a more attractive deal, which is the ultimate purpose. We're trying to, benefit the Yisraelim or the Hegdish to get, the best value out of the property. Okay, let's do a quick recap. We discussed the fellow who was magdish, the future income of the house, in accordance with Rav Meir, that you can do that. We spoke about when to be mamashkein, a fellow who is lacking some motivation in terms of fulfilling this pledge, whether it's an erech, whether it's an oilu shlamim, but not so by the chatas v'asham, except for those, exceptions. When we speak about forcing a person to bring a carbon, that's only up until, but ultimately the actual hakrov has to be done with a big roitzani. Same regarding gitei nashim. Can a person sponsor a carbon for his friend? Well, you could, but you need to get his consent, according to Shmuel, b'shas hafrasha, and b'shas kapara by the chatos, and according to Ula, b'shas kapara and all karbanos, and b'shas hafrasha by the chatos. We explained the pshat for that based on Tosfos. We spoke about roitzani being mevatel the medoah as well, and we started, on the process of the shum hayusoimim and the shum hegdish, the selling process regarding properties of Yusoimim or Hegdish and how they go about doing it. Okay, all the best to you and Suras Tevis.